somewhere on Earth, right now, a person in a full-body suit is standing behind 3 layers of steel and glass, 6 feet from something that could end civilization as we know it. Not a bomb, not a weapon in the way you're picturing it. A vial, a few milliliters of liquid, maybe less. Inside it, an organism smaller than a speck of dust, incapable of moving, thinking, or even technically being alive, and yet powerful enough to empty cities, collapse economies, and rewrite the course of human history. We build entire fortresses around these things. Concrete, steel, pressurized air, spacesuits. Not to keep people out, but to keep something microscopic in. So how do you actually build a cage for something you can't even see? Let's go inside. The invisible arms race. For most of human history, we study disease the way you'd study a monster in the dark, from a distance, blind, guessing at its shape from the damage it left behind. Then came microscopes, and suddenly humanity could see its oldest enemies face to face. But looking at something dangerous up close comes with an obvious problem. It can look back. Throughout the 20th century, laboratory workers kept getting infected by the very things they were trying to study, sometimes by accident, sometimes because nobody had bothered to ask, what happens if this gets out of the room? For decades, containment was inconsistent. One institution's idea of careful might be another's idea of reckless. There was no shared language, no shared standard, no ladder to climb. Just individual scientists making individual judgment calls, often after something had already gone wrong. So eventually, the world built a system, a ladder of increasing paranoia, engineered specifically to match the danger of what's being handled. Today, we call these rungs biosafety levels, and they run from 1 to 4, each one a direct response to a simple, terrifying question. What is the worst thing this organism could do, and how far are we willing to go to stop it? Let's climb them. BSL-1, the kiddie pool. At the bottom of the ladder is BSL-1, the biological equivalent of a locked kitchen. Here, scientists work with organisms that, as far as we know, don't cause disease in healthy adult humans. Think certain harmless strains of bacteria used to teach undergraduates the basics of microbiology. The rules here are almost embarrassingly simple. Wash your hands. Wipe the counter. Don't eat lunch at your workstation. It's less a fortress and more a set of good manners. But even at this level, the philosophy that defines every level above it is already present. Assume something could go wrong and build a habit that prevents it before it happens. That single idea, build the habit before you need it, is the seed every other level grows out of. BSL-2, respect the enemy, climb 1 rung, and the danger sharpens. BSL-2 handles organisms that can make you seriously ill, but usually not through the air, and usually with treatments available if things go wrong. This is where a lot of everyday diseases live in lab form. Things spread through blood or through direct contact. Now the rules gain teeth. Access is restricted. Not everyone gets to walk in. Certain procedures that could fling droplets into the air must happen inside a sealed cabinet, a box with its own internal airflow so that whatever escapes the sample gets pulled away from the researcher's face and filtered before it ever reaches the room. Protective equipment goes from optional to mandatory. Gloves, lab coats, eye protection. Waste doesn't just go in the trash anymore. It gets sterilized before it's allowed to leave the building at all, cooked under heat and pressure until whatever might still be alive in it isn't. The organism hasn't changed. Our respect for it has. BSL-3, the air itself becomes a weapon. Now we reach the level where things get genuinely serious. BSL-3 houses organisms that can cause severe, sometimes fatal disease, and crucially, ones that can spread through the air itself. Tuberculosis lives at this level, so does the virus behind the earlier SARS outbreak. Airborne danger changes everything because you can no longer contain the threat with gloves and good manners. You have to control the air, so the entire room is engineered to fight gravity and physics on your behalf. Air is pulled inward, never pushed out. Every door, every gap, every seam is designed so that air always flows from the cleanest area toward the most contaminated one, never the other way. If you open a door, a faint gust of wind should always be moving past you and into the room, not out of it. All that air, before it ever leaves the building, is forced through filters fine enough to trap the organism itself, then either destroyed or heavily filtered before release. Researchers work inside sealed cabinets for almost everything, wear respirators, and shower before they're allowed to leave. The building isn't just a room anymore. It's a one-way valve. This is also the level where the world got a real public reminder of what happens when things go right and wrong at the same time. In the early 2000s, after the original SARS outbreak had already been contained out in the world, the virus still managed to slip out of research labs studying it. Not once, but on a handful of separate occasions, in different countries. Not through some catastrophic explosion or dramatic failure, but through small human gaps. A researcher exposed during routine work, a sample handled outside the procedure meant to contain it. Nobody died in most of these cases, but it was a quiet, uncomfortable lesson. Even a well-designed system is only as strong as the humans operating inside it every single day, without fail. BSL-4, inside the spacesuit, and then there's the top of the ladder. The rung reserved for the organisms that have no cure, no vaccine, and a horrifying ability to kill. This is where the deadliest hemorrhagic fevers live, organisms so dangerous that a single exposure could be a death sentence. At this level, the entire concept of the room dissolves. Researchers don't just wear gloves and masks. They climb into a fully sealed positive pressure suit, breathing air pumped in through a hose from an entirely separate supply, so that even if the suit tears, air rushes out of the gap instead of the outside world rushing in. Before anyone leaves, they pass through a chemical shower built directly into the wall of the suit room, dousing themselves in disinfectant while still inside the suit. Every door is interlocked so that two can never be open at once. There is no path from the deadliest room in the building to the outside world that isn't broken into multiple independently sealed stages. There are only a small handful of these facilities on the entire planet. Entering one is less like walking into a laboratory and more like preparing for a spacewalk. Except instead of protecting a person from the vacuum of space, the suit is protecting the rest of the world from what's inside a single sealed room. Everything, without exception, is built around a single design principle repeated at every scale. Whatever happens, contamination flows one direction, and that direction is always inward, never out. When the system works, and when it doesn't. Here's the uncomfortable truth. No containment system is perfect because every layer of it depends on humans following procedure correctly. Every single time, for years on end. Suits get torn, habits slip, doors get propped open by tired people in a hurry. Most containment breaches in history haven't come from some dramatic disaster movie scenario. They've come from small human mistakes. A needle stick, a moment of fatigue, a protocol skipped because nothing had gone wrong yet, which is exactly why every level of this ladder isn't really about the walls at all. It's about culture. Redundant systems exist because we don't trust any single layer, including the human wearing the suit, to be flawless forever. Every lock, every filter, every shower is a quiet admission. We know people make mistakes, so we built a system that survives the mistake anyway. The strange comfort of fear. There's something almost paradoxical about walking through a BSL-4 lab. It should feel like the most terrifying place on Earth, And in some ways it is, but it's also, statistically, one of the safest rooms you could stand in, precisely because everyone inside is thinking about catastrophe every single second. Complacency, not the pathogen itself, is usually the real enemy in these buildings. That's the strange trade humanity has made with dangerous knowledge. We don't get to undiscover the things that can kill us. We can only decide how carefully we choose to hold them. Somewhere behind those layers of steel, glass, and pressurized air, a handful of people in spacesuits are quietly standing between the rest of us and organisms that have ended civilizations before ours even began keeping records. They're not superheroes. They're just very, very careful. And in a strange way, that might be one of the most human things we do, staring directly at the things that could destroy us and building a system patient enough, humble enough, and paranoid enough to keep us all safe from them, one sealed door at a time.